Why, Crusher, it's good to see you.
You're listening to Krush Performance, your weekly source for sport performance and athletic development information. Get the Krush blogs, podcasts, and performance links at crushperformance.com. Now, here he is, the Crusher.
Welcome to Krush Performance, everybody. I am Jeff Krush, and we're your weekly source for performance information. Hey, if you have any questions, comments, smart remarks, reach out to us. JeffKrush.com is the website. You can also search us out on social media. Search out Krush Performance or Jeff Krush. We can connect there. And listen, we answer every single message we get. So if you do need some help with your programs, if you're running a team and have questions, I'm not going to say we have all the answers in-house here, but I will tell you this. With all of our connections in the world of high performance sport and youth development, we know somebody who has those answers. And here's the great thing about those people, they all want to share. And that's why I'm so excited about this, our 20th season. As we go through the season, one of our mandates is to go back and revisit with some of the great guests we've had over the years. On that note, if you have a guest or if there was a topic in the past that you really connected with, let us know. We're going back and we're going to revisit with some of those people, catch up to see what they're doing. We're also going to revisit those old conversations in case there's something that we've forgotten or we're missing. We're also going to continue on with the regular Krush stuff, the latest trends and research coming out of the sport performance world. So today is no exception. I am so glad you're here, and I'm so excited about today's show because we are going to visit with a Krush Hall of Famer. And again, we've been asked 100 times, hey, what constitutes a Krush Hall of Famer? I just think it's somebody who's always willing to come on the show and just shares their great knowledge with us, right? People who've been on multiple times. We have Krush favorites, all these great new people that we meet, but for some of our guests who we've had on time and time again, and they just keep bringing us to new places and guiding us to new heights of performance, those are the true Krush Hall of Famers. Now, along with those Hall of Famers, most of them are authored, well written, and have authored books. And so we do have a list of Krush must-read books, and today's guest is no exception. Just like last week with Dr. Rady, the author of Spark, the revolutionary new science behind the brain and exercise. Unbelievable conversation last week, and that's a new guest. Dr. Rady is definitely a Krush favorite. Today, though, we are going to visit with Krush Hall of Famer, Dr. Jacques Dallaire. Now listen, Dr. Jacques Dallaire, Dr. Jacques to us, all us Krushers, he has been in the high performance business for over 5 decades. Just to give you a little idea of the depth of his experience and knowledge, he's dealt with tens of thousands, certainly thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of high performers in over 100 different disciplines in over 50 different countries. And Dr. Dallaire, one of the things I love about him is he really is turning the table and pushing performance in every corner of the earth. Spends a lot of time with the military and first responders, a lot of time in the business world as well. He's worked in the pageant industry and movie and entertaining industry, but he's really hung his hat on the racing world and all of the things that go into helping these drivers and their teams perform well. His information you can find at Dr. Dallaire, DALLAIRE.co, Dr. Dallaire.co. That's his link tree. You could go there to get all of his great information. And in the past, we've discussed his book, Performance Thinking, and then also Performance for Your Children. His second book, just fantastic stuff. And he has always shared, I think, with Dr. Dallaire, Dr. Jacques, just the usefulness, the simple approach, but the power, the tangible things that we take away has really helped. And that's the reason I think we've had so many requests to get Dr. Dallaire back on the show here. Well, here he is. And again, traveling all over the world. I'm really glad to get him on today. as we revisit some of his ideas when it comes to performance thinking and some of the new concepts that he's using to help his athletes, his teams, and organizations really hone in on what it takes to be a top performer. Now, interesting thing, Dr. Dallaire, dear to my heart, of course, comes from an exercise science and kinesiology, physiology background, which is my world, strength and conditioning, physiology, and connecting the dots between the biochemistry, the physiology, the sport demands, nutrition, and then, of course, the mental game. If you're new to the show, and there's a lot of new viewers out there, welcome. I want to welcome you, but I also want to let you know that we have 5 priorities. For every team, organization, or athlete that comes into the Krush Performance fold, we have 5 priorities that have to be met to really, really take those people and those entities, those teams, to their true potential. Okay, and it's all happening before we even talk about the sport itself. And for all you crushers who have been listening for years and years, you've heard this 1,000 times. Bear with me as I go through it again. Our top 5 priorities in human performance. Number 1, sleep, rest, and recovery. All right, without question, everything we do is impacted by our sleep, but also by the rest and recovery we can get in any given time frame. That's why all the work that we prescribe in our programs, all the adjustments we make day to day, revolve around the athlete's readiness on any given time frame, and the work that they do, or the work that we prescribe along with the sport demands, all determines their potential recovery rates, right? So sleep, rest, and recovery, priority number 1. Priority number 2, and it's a close number 2, nutrition and hydration, right? And that's a big one. We've had many people on the show, especially Dr. Andoise Allen, and who's been a major contributor to our Krush War on Sugar. But that nutrition and hydration piece is such a driver for human performance, such an important part of it all. Then number 3 for us is, for our athletes, posture and range of motion, making sure this thing is set up right. Posture, range of motion around the working joints, making sure everything's functioning properly, and everything has the potential to function at the highest level on any given training day or competition day. So important. And it's one of the biggest misses in all of sport, especially at the youth development side. And it's hard, right? I mean, we only have so much time and we only have so much resources. But interesting enough, a lot of the work that we do on our daily practices can be geared towards supporting and developing proper posture and range of motion if you know what you're talking about, right? And that's what we talk about on the show all the time. So sleep, rest, and recovery, nutrition, hydration, posture, range of motion, and then movement. Teach movement. In athletics, the 4th priority is movement. And I'm not even talking about sport-specific movement. I'm talking about the brain-body connection. Learning where we are in space, learning how to use the ground, our interaction in our sport, what is happening, dividing the body, upper body, lower body, so they can work independently and effectively. And then for our elite athletes, we divide the body in thirds: upper shoulder girdle, vision, brain center, middle, core, hips, and then ground reaction force, how we interact with the ground in the playing field, right? Whether it's a court, whether it's grass, clay, ice, or snow. That is so important. And then the 5th one, you guys, and it's a very, very important one. It's kind of the rover in our programs, right? It's the Krush brain game. And it's a big, massive thing. And we talked a bit about it last week with Dr. Rady. We're going to talk about it today with Dr. Dallaire. Dr. Martin Mrazek has been a huge part of our brain game endeavors here on Krush Performance. And we have an entire year of episodes dedicated to the Krush brain game with bio and neuro feedback, with proprioception, with spatial awareness, understanding, learning, and performance thinking, which is what today's show is all about. So with those 5 priorities in mind, and with the brain game kind of being our rover, right? Like, listen, if you have anxiety or stress, or you're worried about something, or if you're fixated on the wrong things, it can totally derail your performance. How do you get control of that? Well, listen, if those things are there and they're real, trust me, they're very real, and they're tough to deal with if, 1, you don't understand them, but 2, if you don't know what to do about it. And that's why I am so freaking glad you're here today, because that's what we talked to Dr. Dallaire about. We are going to talk today about our performance thinking, our mental mindset, and I'm glad you're here because that brain game, it is a rover. It's not, and again, these first ones, they're written in stone. It is sleep first, rest and recovery. It is nutrition, hydration section. It is posture, range of motion third. It is then teach movement. But that brain game, it's a really, really interesting one because it can rove. It can change its position in the hierarchy. Once these are in place, then we go attack sport performance, strength, speed, power, technical, tactical work. But unless these 5 are in place, you're really working uphill when it comes to addressing your sport performance and the demands of the sport you play. And maybe, hopefully, most of you are playing multiple sports, right? And that's where it gets kind of fun. But if you have anxiety, stress, or if your performance thinking isn't quite tuned in, well, listen, if anxiety or stress is disrupting your sleep, guess what? That brain game becomes number 1 in our hierarchy because it's disrupting and preventing us from our number 1 priority in sport performance. So we need to address that. So again, I am so glad you're here to join me in this conversation with Krush Hall of Famer, Dr. Jacques Dallaire, Performance Prime. Let's get to it. All right, everybody, welcome to Krush Performance here. I am very, very happy to introduce to you, for all of our new watchers, viewers, and listeners, a Krush Hall of Famer. I think it was 10 years ago we first had Dr. Jacques Dallaire on the show. And for all you trusted, returning, longtime crushers, you guys will know Dr. Dallaire and his message very well. Dr. Dallaire, welcome to season 20 of Krush Performance. So great to have you back on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you again. I've always enjoyed it, and 20 years is a heck of a milestone. Congratulations.
Yeah, we are actually very excited about this. We've gone through the turbulence and the comings and goings of different radio stations and platforms, but we always just seem to adapt and evolve, and that's part of the message you send too. And it's really, really important for everybody who's new to Dr. Dallaire. We'll refer to him as Dr. Jacques here because he's quite a good friend of ours. You can check his great information out at performanceprime.com. Dr. Dallaire, you've been doing this for we're into 20 years. You're into 5+ decades in your business, 100 country or 100 different sports and disciplines in 50 or 60 different countries. You have a wealth of experience and knowledge behind your back. And over all those years, you've shared some absolute nuggets we're going to revisit here on the show. Over all those years, if you were to look back, what are some of the big takeaways for you as a professional?
Well, I guess I would say there are a few key points. But just before we get started, I'd like to make a suggestion. If people want to find out a little bit more about how I approach the question of high performance and mental skills, you could direct them to my Linktree portal because they could listen to some podcasts I've been a guest on, like yours, where I talk about how we mentally sabotage ourselves and how we can avoid that trap. And the URL is simple. It's www.drdallaire, my last name, DALLAIRE.co. And that will take them to my Linktree, and then they can visit website, etc. It's the easiest way to do it. So let me address your question. Here's what I've learned over 55 years of working with many thousands of high performance people from lots of different professions, not just in the sport world, but the occupation, the entertainment world, and beyond. People wrestle with the same issues from a mental skills point of view. The problems, the issues are universal. And here's how I would simplify the pressure points that I hear from people all over the world, including from top performers in many sports. Self-doubt and lack of confidence in some situations is something that everybody wrestles with, even the best performers on the planet. Anxiety in competition and even in life in general, is another pressure point that everybody wrestles with. And the third piece is distractions and the inability to focus effectively on the task without getting pulled off task by all the noise in their environment. Self-doubt, anxiety, and difficulty focusing are pressure points that I hear time and time again. It doesn't matter culture, language, gender, job, how old the person is. People have said, this is what derails my ability to bring my A game to whatever it is I'm doing. Surgery, golf, race car driving, special forces. It doesn't matter. It's those same three pieces. And what people don't realize is those three pieces are intimately interconnected. And the solution to solving all three is about controlling deployment of focus. Because if you can learn to do that, you crush anxiety and you crush self-doubt. So I would say in 55 years, that's been the most glaring nugget of observation that I've seen across more than 50 countries, more than 100 professions, and many, many, many thousands of high performance people. It's pretty
Yeah.
simple, isn't it?
Yeah, valuable stuff. It is quite simple, but I'm going to tell you this is layered for me for sure. Knowing you the way I know you as well for over the years, and of course, reading your books. Everybody, you can go to Dr. Dallaire's website, Performance Thinking, Helping Kids Perform, and Performance Thinking for Law Enforcement. Fantastic reads, but they're all anchored in these unbelievably tangible things you share. And the thing I like about this, Dr. Dallaire, with all of your experience and all the people you've worked with, this whole concept of problem solving, you've clearly defined a problem. It's hard to attack a problem if you don't understand what the problem is. And I think that's one of the incredibly valuable things this brings to the table. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. In my seminars that I do, uh, one of the first slides that I demonstrate on the screen is a picture of a hammer, a block of wood, and a nail that is stuck in that piece of wood with nothing else. And then I pose this question to the group. If no one had ever shown you a nail, no one ever took the time to explain to you how a nail works. If you didn't know nail at all, if I asked you to design a hammer, what would your hammer look like if you didn't know nail? What most
Interesting.
what most people say is, I don't know, because form follows function, right? A
Yeah.
hammer looks the way it does, ostensibly because of what it has to do to a nail. So here's the basic question. If you don't understand what the nail of mental self-sabotage looks like from the outside, feels like from the inside, and sounds like inside your own head, how can you create an effective hammer to counter it? You can't. So the education piece is really, really important. And that's why my approach is very much an educational approach. As you know, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a psychiatrist. My academic background is exercise physiology. I
Yeah.
have a PhD in exercise physiology, but for 22 of the 55 years that I've been doing this work, I worked alongside my late business partner and friend, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Dan Marisi, who was a sports psychologist. So I came away from our experiences together with a non-psychologist perspective on psychology. So I see my role simply as that of an educator to simplify the field of psychology so that people can understand how they sabotage themselves and how they can get out of their own way. Because in my experience, high performance people are not really interested in becoming psychologists. They just want to know, how the heck do I get out of my own way and
Right.
bring the best version of me to the things that I do? So my approach is simple. Some even have said simplistic, and I accept that because that's the way I think people can get their hands around it, to understand what the nail of mental self-sabotage looks like, feels like, and sounds like. And then we can talk about, what does a hammer look like? And how do you use it? How do you swing it?
I love that. Dr. Jacques, I'm telling you. And that hammer, my hammer, might look different than my wife's hammer or my one of my athletes. Their hammer might be a little bit different. I love this concept.
Well, the key is we have different buckets in our life. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a businessman, you're a consultant and podcaster. And those different buckets represent different skill sets and different attributes that define excellence for you in those moments of performance, at home with the family, on the radio, etc. If you've never thought about what are the attributes of excellence that define me in those different roles, what am I shooting at? If you don't know, because we're talking about modeling, aren't we? How do you
Yeah,
model excellence? Well, the
right.
first thing you have to do is understand what excellence looks like, feels like, sounds like, smells like, and tastes like when you perform it in these different buckets of your life. And it could be different on the works in the workspace than say in the family space. But there's some core elements,
Sure.
core attributes that cut across all of those buckets. And if you never thought about it, if you've never defined it for yourself, how can you model it? If you don't know the nail,
Sure.
how to create a hammer?
Right. Right, right. And I like what you're saying here as well. So there are the differences, even different parts of me. And I sort of run over a graph. I got a journal for this. I got a journal for this. I got a journal for this. I got like three journals going on. And when I'm in my podcaster mode or when we're presenting like this, I have my notes and I can go back and, in the sport performance world with my athletes. So that's very interesting. I love it for sure. But inside of that, over the years, Dr. Jacques, you have given us just some unbelievably simple, incredible, simply powerful, I would say, though, analogies and thought and ways to think about things. And I think one of the first ones that really got me sitting back going, and I think it was a whole afternoon just sitting there going, it was after our first conversation. You had me thinking, at least for maybe, and it changed, but it changes the way, it changes the trajectory of a person, maybe if it really hits home. This one hit home. The performance equation, Dr. Jacques, hit home with me early on. It was one of our early conversations, but boy, oh boy, that helped me recalibrate, not just thinking for me, but also thinking for the athletes and coaches that I'm also trying to help as well.
Absolutely. The performance equation, as simplistic as it is the foundation that I have observed over the decades that explains how people sabotage themselves. And it's universal, it's fundamental, it's infallible. The performance equation says that results are a product of two things: A times B. It's been that way since the dinosaurs roamed the earth. It will be that way for the next 500 years, or at least as long as we're on this rock. Results, which everybody wants. I've never met a single person who said to me, I want to be a loser. I'd like to fail.
Right.
I'd really like to come in last this weekend. Can you show me how to suck at this thing I'm about to do? Because I really would like to suck at it. No one's ever said that.
No.
Surprise, surprise, right? Everybody wants to be successful. Some people don't know how to be. Some people don't believe they can be. Some people aren't willing to put in the work necessary to become successful, but everybody wants it. So we don't have to ask the question, do you want to be successful? Because I know everybody does in every bucket of their life. Why? Because success is a heck of a lot better than failure for all kinds of reasons, right?
Right.
So the really important question is, how do we create the greatest measure of success possible in a given situation? A times B explains what they are. A is what I bring to that moment of performance. The knowledge, the fitness, the skills, the experience that I have in that moment is what I've got. I can't wave a magic wand when I step into that moment and have more knowledge, skill, and experience than I have. What I've got is what I've got. Those are the cards I get to play in that moment when performance is required. But there's other things that can influence that can reduce the quality of my A. If I'm sleep deprived, if I haven't been eating well, if I'm dehydrated, if I had an argument with my partner that's causing distractions where my focus is not on the task, but on all the noise. A represents what I bring to that moment of performance. Here's the truth. If I bring the absolute best I can to a given situation where I'm asked to perform, and I don't care what the performance is, it doesn't guarantee the result I want because there's a second variable. The second variable is the B factors, the things I can't control.
Right.
Sometimes they work against me. I'm the bug. Other times they work for me. I'm the windshield. Sometimes they're plus, sometimes they're minus, sometimes they're big, sometimes they're little. It is a fundamental truth that the results we accomplish in everything is a product of what we bring to that moment of performance, influenced by things we cannot control. That's true in personal relationships. In a personal relationship, what you can control is what you bring to the relationship. You cannot control what the other person thinks, feels, and does. And both of those, the interaction of those two pieces determines the quality of the result.
Right.
It's fundamentally true, isn't it?
Totally.
So here's the thing that I think is another profound fundamental truth. The mindset that the performer has the moment they step across the threshold into that moment of performance, the mindset they possess is the most important mental skill of any mental skill out there. Because if their mindset is not optimal, they will not do their best work and they will leave performance on the table.
I love it. And that mindset, Dr. Jacques, that mindset, that is a skill that can be trained like anything else.
Absolutely. There are three pieces, I think, that if one learns to weave these three pieces together, you have the foundation for understanding how to bring excellence to what you do. These are the three pieces. The right level of calm matched to the right level of intensity with an unwavering laser focus on the execution of the task in the moment you're doing it.
Right.
The right level of calm with the right level of intensity with an absolute execution focus. If you can find those three pieces in yourself and understand what they look like and feel like and bring them together and apply them to whatever it is you're doing, you will do the best job that is possible by you in that moment, except for the things you can't control. And that even applies on date night.
I love it. Right.
Right?
Totally.
How many times is the issue you're not present? You're distracted by something. You're thinking about work or whatever it happens to be. You're not here.
Yeah. This thing's got me into more trouble than I can tell you. I've learned to shut it off on date night.
Yeah, but you know what the problem is, Jeff? That's great because most young people today don't understand that there's an off switch to their phone.
Right. No, true.
How many times do you think they turn their phone off? Almost never. But here's the funny thing. You turn yours off, but if you're thinking about what you're missing because it's off while you're doing something else, it still serves as a distraction.
Totally.
And you're not present. You're not
Hey,
focused on what
oh
you're
no,
doing.
and that is a great segue, Dr. Jacques, because I wanted to get into this, and you mentioned this a couple of times. And again, oh my gosh, this everybody, performanceprime.com. We will post the link to your link tree, Dr. Jacques.
Instead of that, send them to the link
Yeah,
tree portal, because .com is the old address. The link tree portal will give them all the new information.
yeah, we're gonna post the link tree link for sure, so
Okay.
everybody can get there. Just so important, this understanding that like you something. I think you're the only person I've really ever heard in the performance world in all my years that really uses that sort of vision of self-sabotage, this idea of sabotage. And it is powerful, mister. For me anyway, it's powerful. But understanding what that is and understanding how to deal with it, that's the key. The performance equation, A plus B equals results. The three important things: the level of calm, the level of intensity, and the focus on execution. These are the pieces of the puzzle that can really help people execute and get to where they want to go. But when we talk about
Jeff, let me offer a simple sentence or two
sure,
that I think is the key to high performance success. It's going to be really simple.
I love it.
The key is to control the deployment of your focus of attention to be on what matters in the moment that it matters, that you can control, to avoid thinking about all the things that are outside of your control and that don't matter in that moment.
I love it. I love
That's
it.
that's the key. Because if you're
No,
successful in doing that, not only will you bring the best version of yourself to the things that you do, but you will actually crush anxiety and self-doubt from your life. Because if you think about it, when you're in that groove, in that sweet spot, in the zone mentally, there's no anxiety or self-doubt at all, is there? And the reason is because you're fully connected and focused on the execution of what you're doing in the moment you do it.
yeah,
There's no central processing capacity left over to worry. And worry, fear are the seeds that grow into the weed of anxiety and self doubt. Because
sure.
when we're not worried about anything, there's no anxiety or self doubt at all, is there?
No,
And worry and fear are always forward facing, never rearward facing. I don't worry about what happened yesterday because I know what happened yesterday. I might be worried about what happens tomorrow because of what happened yesterday, but my fear, my worry is always forward facing. And here's the fundamental truth: worry is about things that haven't happened yet, probably won't happen, and that I can't actually control anyway.
right? Hey, I'm gonna make a T-shirt. You're gonna get a T-shirt for Christmas that says exactly that. It's
Well,
just
that's what the acronym FEAR stands for.
yeah,
False expectations that appear so real in the moment, but that almost never come to pass. And yet, in the moment, they drive anxiety and self doubt because our focus is on the consequence of what we're doing rather than on the execution of what we're doing. And that's when we fail, and failure becomes self fulfilling prophecy.
what an ultimate challenge, Dr. Jacques. I mean, this is just, oh my gosh, I love this stuff. And just getting back to the start of this, because there's a whole thread we need to unravel here. Me thinking about this being off actually takes me out of the game at the time. So that's an interesting thing. Trying to think about what I shouldn't be thinking about actually sabotages myself, right? So
Rule number three.
that's
Rule
an
number three.
interesting thing.
Rule number three says you can't not think about whatever it is you're thinking about.
Right. Right.
You can't not think about whatever's on your mind.
Right.
Don't think about the next thing I'm going to describe for you. I don't want you to picture in your mind's eye a huge pink elephant wearing purple boxer shorts with great big yellow dots splashed all over. Hard to do, isn't it?
Hence the logo per se.
The more you try to not think about something, to not worry, what do you end up doing? Worrying more.
Yep.
because your focus of attention is deployed to the fear over the negative consequence of what you're doing. It drives anxiety, it drives self-doubt, and here's the key: it takes you away from the present focus of engagement. And that's when you make mistakes, and that's when failure becomes self-fulfilling.
Oh, okay. This is great. The 7 rules of the mental road, right? Which we've talked about on the show before. We're getting pieces of it here, ladies and gentlemen. So powerful, and we have athletes who we know they come to us and they go and they think it's a physical thing. But I'm telling you, and you've been there. This is your original background, the physiology side, right? They're strong enough. They are fast enough. They can move the puck. They can hit the ball, but they still
demonstrated in practice. They demonstrated in private practice. They demonstrated in testing, but they fold like a wet paper napkin when it gets to the big events.
Right.
Not because they've forgotten how, not because they've lost the skill, because something corrupts the mindset that prevents them from bringing the skill sets that they obviously still possess. Because as soon as the big event is over and they go back to practice, they excel at practice again. How do you explain that?
Right. It's one of the big mysteries in sport today, I'd say.
There's only one explanation. It's not a mystery, it's simple.
Right.
Their thought process in the moments of the big performances changes fundamentally from the way they think when it doesn't matter so much. And the fundamental key difference is when it doesn't matter, they're more likely to focus on what they're doing. When it does matter, they're more likely to be preoccupied by how they're doing.
Right. Boom.
And their focus is on the wrong thing.
Right.
Are they focused? Yes, they are. So don't tell them they're not focused, because they are. The key is they're incorrectly focused. That's why the fundamental secret is to control the deployment of focus so that it is on what matters in the moment that it matters. So that it can't be on the stuff that doesn't matter, that you can't control anyway.
Right.
Hasn't
Just where
happened.
everybody gravitates. I don't know if it's a human thing or whatever it is, but you have talked about this on the show before. You've talked about, and you've actually mentioned the numbers. We actually did a Krush report, a little vignette that aired on all the radio platforms. It's a 90-second vignette. I think I sent it to you, where you described, hey, one of the biggest pitfalls in human performance. Thinking of what should happen or could happen, thinking about what the implications of what has happened, and it takes you away from being in the moment.
The demon of expectations. It is a demon. Because as soon as we create an expectation in advance of some event, the expectation is always framed around an outcome. Either an outcome of success if things have been going really well up to the point of that performance. We roll into it expecting success. Or failure if the practice and the things that have happened before that, we've struggled. We go into it with an expectation that we're going to get our butts handed to us.
Right.
And here's the fundamental problem with the demon of expectations. As soon as we create an outcome-based expectation, whether it's success or failure, we automatically start paying more attention to and focus on how we're doing relative to that expectation rather than to what we're doing. And that's what opens up the door to mistakes, and then failure becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anxiety goes up, self-doubt goes up, confidence hits the toilet, and we start worrying more and more and focusing more and more on how we're doing and less on what we're doing, and we keep screwing the pooch.
That is the corruption of the mindset you've mentioned.
Yep.
And I love that. I love that. Just sort of that frame up, the corruption of the mindset. I also love the demon of expectations. I'm getting a whole t-shirt line going here. Mental performance t-shirt line. Here we go.
Can I give you some imagery?
Yes, please.
That solves this problem to some degree. And it was shared to me by one of my special forces operators. I've had a chance to work with 63 tier 1 operators over the years. And we were talking about kind of the decay in performance that occurs mentally how people start to sabotage themselves. And I described it kind of like a spiral, where it spirals down into the hole. Because it doesn't operate like a square wave function. We're thinking correctly, then all of a sudden, boom, we're negative and we're incorrect. It's a slippage that occurs. It's a drift. It's a drift that occurs. And this gentleman was a specialist in, he was a sniper and weapons and explosives expert. And he said to me, that's really interesting because that's how a smart bomb works. And I said, what? Smart bomb? He said, yeah, that's how a smart bomb works. And I said, I don't understand the connections. You're going to have to explain it to me. And he did. And it was brilliant. And I use it now in my teaching. So I'm going to tell you how a smart bomb works, and your listeners can think about it this way too. When the Special Forces operator, who's in his hide on the mountain with a very special pair of binoculars, sees some really bad guys go into a building that they're trying to take out, they can put a little red laser dot on that building and call for a strike from some distance away. The missile might come from a drone or a jet or a boat or land-based, whatever, it doesn't matter. But as soon as the missile comes off the rail, there's a connection that occurs between the nose of the missile and the dot. There's software, there's GPS, and there's different things. And he said, imagine there's a tight string connected to the nose of the missile and the red dot, and the missile wants to follow the string right to the red dot. He said, but the problem is there are wind currents pushing on it as it's going towards the dot. There are elevation changes that are occurring. So he said, the missile drifts off course. He said, and it is the drift of the missile away from the string that becomes the signal for the missile to adjust the little wings, the air control surfaces, to bring it back to the string. So it's constantly course correcting to come back to the string. And he said, so now instead of imagining it like a string, think of it as a large tube with a string down the middle, and the missile is constantly moving within this tube, trying to follow the string, being pushed off string by external forces and course correcting to come back to the string. And he said the difference between the missiles of today and the missiles of even a year ago is the quality of the software and the hardware that recognizes drift and that allows for correction. So he said, now instead of a tube this big, the tube is this big.
Wow.
He said,
Right.
there will always be a need for course correction because there's always external forces and noise that push the missile off string. So he said, what you're telling me is I need to eavesdrop on the mind chatter going on inside my own head to recognize the drift. And as soon as I can recognize it, to stop digging and to redirect my focus to the string, being present in what's involved. And he said, what will happen is initially I might drift a longer way, but as I get more proficient, the size of my tube will shrink and there will be less and less drift as I figure out how to really effectively eavesdrop on the mind chatter. Because if you eavesdrop on the mind chatter going on in your head at any given moment, it will tell you exactly where your focus of attention is directed, won't it? And if it's not correct, redirect it to what's correct.
Oh,
It's a great analogy. It's a great analogy, isn't it?
I'm feeling pretty powerful right now, mister. I'll tell you that.
But it is so simple. It's not easy because it requires the discipline to pay attention to our thoughts. And most people don't listen to their thoughts at all. They just think, they just react to their environment. And that's why people are good when things are going well, and they're junk when they're not, because they allow their conscious mind's thoughts to be defined by the circumstances and the situation around them. And they allow those thoughts to be defined by, infected by the situation and the circumstances around them, rather than controlling their thoughts in the face of those challenging moments.
Oh, man, such a great stuff. I think like in my mind right now, I'm thinking like steal my mindset, protect my mindset, right? And again, then the
The
other challenge is, and I
mental
mentioned earlier to you that I'm working with these young developing athletes who are, 10, 11, 12 now. And we've actually got kind of like an Olympic cycle. We've got like 2 or 3 quadrennial cycles. We'll have these athletes for 6, 7, maybe 8 years, some of them. So I'm actually excited to see where it goes. And again, that's a power, like a superpower that's just you're going to grow and develop. And as again, I think as an athlete starts understanding, and as they grow and develop, and their skill set also goes to the next level, these things change. But it's fundamental to performance everywhere you look, though.
Yeah, it is. And the problem is, if you don't understand how the dots are connected, you don't understand the nail of mental self-sabotage. So
Right,
you become hit and miss. Sometimes you're on it, and sometimes you're not.
right. So
It's not what
doctor,
it's not what
yeah,
champions do, but that's what the vast majority of people do. That's what the general population does.
yeah,
People do not spend any time and energy, in my experience, policing their thoughts in the face of the challenges that they entertain. They allow the challenges to define the nature and quality of their thoughts. And because of that, they sabotage themselves because they don't understand how the dots are connected. And until
right,
they do, they'll be good in some instances and not so good in others.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's it's fundamental, simple math. It's not rocket science that we're
sure,
talking about here.
yeah.
It's not easy, but it's simple,
Right. That's a
right?
that's a great distinction. It's
Not
not
easy,
easy, but
but
that is a great distinction,
principles
Dr. Jacques.
the principles are simple. The problem is simple to understand. The solution is simple to understand. The difficulty comes in its execution. And the reason is the majority of people don't understand how the dots are connected, because once you
Right.
understand the dots and how they're connected, you're 70% of the way to
Yeah.
creating camera.
So, Dr. Jacques, this is incredible, and we don't want to steal too much of your time here, though I could kidnap you for a couple hours right now. but but you travel around the world. 50, 60 different countries you spent time in and are spending time in right now. When you come in, I have to think that it's kind of like when if I were going to an assignment for Major League Baseball. They get everybody together, and then I kind of create an environment, hopefully, where I can have an influence. Like most people who don't have access to these conversations, or people like yourself on a day-to-day basis, creating that environment. Like when I think about this, policing your thoughts and learning how to think this way, like practicing to think this way, that has to happen at a time. That has to happen. Can't happen in the heat of battle, but it's something that's trainable. But we've got to create that environment, and
Culture,
that's up to the coaches and
culture,
the parents and
the team culture and the personal culture has to allow for that kind of thinking.
right.
As counterintuitive as it sounds, if you want the best results possible in any situation, from date night to surgery to combat, stop focusing on the results. Focus on the execution of the process that will lead you to the results.
Oh, I love it.
And yet everybody keeps pounding on the results because results are important. For a lot of my clients, good results represent the difference between living and dying literally. So you better believe that I think there's nothing more important to results than results, because there's nothing more important to my clients than results. But the way to get the best results possible is to stop focusing on and worrying about results Pour all of your intellectual capacity and focus on the best execution of the process and tweak the process on an ongoing basis to improve it and focus on the improved process day to day. And if you do that, you will deliver the best results possible. Does it guarantee what you want? Of course it doesn't, because you can't discount the B factors, and sometimes things that are outside of our control cut us off at the knees and damage the ability to create the result. But it's not a product of a lack of performance on our part. It's something outside of our control. It
Yeah.
might have been the best race of my life, but the wheel broke and fell off.
Right. I can't help but go back to that smart bomb analogy, and you know, when those uncontrollables are influencing your performance or where you're at, just being able to course correct, right? Maybe we'll, and again, maybe we'll wrap it up with this. Oh my gosh, because I'm trying to keep it to an hour in respect of your time. But you know, I just have a note here. You know, something that I use all the time, and it had a huge response on our show to our listeners. We had parents and coaches writing in after this episode when you were on. This was 2017 or 2016, but we talked about those influences and maybe those wins that are causing us to get off track. And you said something that I believe is all powerful, as powerful as everything else, but also so simple. And it's, if you understand it, you said you were talking about the difference between criticism and critique, and how important delivering messages, setting up the messaging of everything, but also internally understanding. And one of the sabotages is self-criticism rather than self-critique. And those are two very, very different things that I believe take people off course.
You're absolutely right. And the fundamental difference between those two things is this. A self-critique answers the question, what didn't I do as well as I could have, and how can I do it better next time? Without the self-flagellation of a self-criticism that says, you're such a loser, you're a moron, you'll never be good at this. A self-criticism contains a value judgment that a self-critique does not. Self-critique simply answers the question, what didn't I do as well as I could have? What didn't you do as well as you could have? What didn't we do as well as we could have? And how can we do it better? Without the self-criticism of a value judgment saying, the reason we lost is you're the loser, it's your fault, you're never going to be good at this, why do you even bother, you should quit. Implied, but not necessarily stated, right? Here is a self-criticism. I can't believe I did that. Here's a self-critique. Well, that wasn't a good thing to do. How can I do it better next time?
Right. Very different.
Here's a criticism of you. What the heck is the matter with you? Don't you want to win? Here's a self-critique. I think if you did this, there'd be a greater chance that that goal that we both want would be achieved. One has a value judgment, and sometimes it's not stated, it's implied by tone of voice or body language. Here's a self-criticism. I don't know if you can see it on the camera.
Right.
Right?
Huge message to coaches and parents right there.
Disappointment.
Yep.
Didn't say a word. Didn't say a word. But boy, oh boy, our kids read that body language.
Yep.
And when the first thing they do when they finish a performance is look for mom and dad to see what body language is being expressed, you know that the culture of that family and that team is all about results and failure.
Right.
Because I want to know whether I'm disappointing my parents or whether I'm going to get chewed out for having done something wrong. We don't think of those things, but they're absolutely relevant. The title of my second book, as you know, Helping Kids Perform. The subtitle is the key. Mental skills every parent, teacher, and coach should master. Because parents, teachers, and coaches have not mastered those skills because they don't know how the dots are connected either.
Right, exactly.
And until
with greatest of intentions, right?
With the greatest of intentions, because they want nothing but the best for their child.
Yeah.
Nothing but the best. But they don't understand the nail.
That's so great.
Simple, profoundly true, universally applicable, infallible.
Yeah. Yeah. Understanding the nail. That is step number one. I love it.
Got to understand the nail or you can never understand the hammer.
Yeah. 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 And that debrief is so important. You've talked in the past on the show about your work with the first responders, the law enforcement, and the military as well. And their true use of that not criticism, but the critique and how important it is in their world.
It is part of their culture. It is an integral part of their culture and their process. And that's why they're so good at what they do.
Right. It's not personal. That's life or death there. I mean, they're trying to...
You don't feel attacked. And if you can build a culture of critique in your team rather than criticism, people don't feel attacked when someone brings them an idea on how they can do something better. They look at it, take what they can learn from it, look to apply it the next time and move on, and thank the person for sharing it with them, as opposed to saying, who the hell are you to tell me how to do this? Talk to the hand. I'm not listening anymore. Right?
Right. Yeah, no, it happens
all too
often.
Whenever we feel attacked, the first thing we human beings do is defend.
Right.
And the competitive people immediately counterattack.
Right.
Defend and counterattack.
Right.
Communication just died, and if communication dies, you'll never solve the problem.
One of the integral parts of high-performing teams. And as you mentioned at the start, sport, business, life, man, those principles apply everywhere humans exist.
I don't know if you're familiar with Project Aristotle, done by Alphabet, Google.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about it. I don't know all the details.
Check it out, Jeff, because you'll find it really interesting. And I encourage your listeners and viewers to check out Project Aristotle. Just Google it. It was done in 2012. And the fundamental question that they were trying to answer in this multi-year, multi-million-dollar research was what makes teams successful? What makes teams, high-performance teams, successful? They conducted, they looked at more than 180 teams in Google and Alphabet, from the tech weenies to the marketing and the sales and the admin people. They did over 250 interviews with groups ranging from 3 or 4 people to 20, 25 people. They looked at more than 250 variables from the research literature that were identified as being important to successful teams. And they weaved all of that together to determine in rank order the most important attributes of high performance successful teams. Most people think, great equipment, smart people, super facilities. Yeah, they were there, but they were 6 on down. The top five are not what people think. And I'm only going to give you the first one because you have to go and see what the others are, because they're really interesting. The first most important attribute is what they referred to as psychological safety.
Oh.
The ability of a person to bring an idea or input that might be contrary to the normal groupthink of the group or out of the box and not feel the threat of embarrassment or ridicule or reprisal. In other words, the ability
Love
to
it.
bring something different to the discussion that is the accepted norm, that might even be counter to the norm, without the fear of being pounded down because of that by bosses, managers, whatever, or ridiculed by their own teammates. And if you think about it, it's completely understandable because that's where innovation comes from, isn't it?
Sure.
Innovation, by definition, comes from people who are thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And if we always operate under the premise that this is the way we've always done it, innovation isn't possible.
I love
Psychological
it.
safety.
I love it. So that's our homework.
The other ones, Project Google,
Yep.
Project Aristotle, like the philosopher,
Yep.
done by Google, and I believe it was in 2012. And the actual report for the project is very long, so you don't have to read that. But there's some really good summaries that are 12, 15, 18 pages long
Yep.
that give the highlights of what Project Aristotle found.
I remember hearing about it, but I never did get into the results. So this is going to be great homework for us. All right. Thank you so much.
Because
Listen,
you
Dr. Jacques.
won't regret it. It's relevant to what you do. It's relevant to every reader out there who works in an environment with other people.
Yep.
It's about what makes teams successful, and you'll see a lot of it. It has to do with mindset.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Dr. Jacques, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. So great to have you back here on our 20th season. Again, an honored Krush Hall of Famer. If you could share with us one more time your Linktree link, we'll make sure everybody gets that in the write-up.
Yeah. www.dr Dallaire DALLAIRE.co.
Perfect.
If you put that into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. You can check out a website, you can look at books, etc. You can look at my social media, but it'll also give you a chance to scroll down and to listen to some other podcasts that I've been a guest on around the world, South Africa, Canada, other places, where I talk about how do we actually sabotage ourselves and how do we avoid that trap. And people might find something useful in those discussions that they can hook onto and pull into their own life to reduce self-doubt and anxiety and improve their performance.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that at all. So we'll make sure everybody gets that. We'll put the link in the write-up for sure. And through this conversation, I've come up with I want to see if you approve of this. The title for this episode, because we try to have a cool, catchy little title. I'm going to call this episode The Smart Bomb of Mental Performance. What do you think?
I like it. Here's
okay. The smart bomb analogy for me. That's the first time I've heard it. I love it.
The smart bomb is a great one. Maybe you can do you know how you have the title and then you have a subtitle?
Yep, absolutely.
Just put the nail of mental self-sabotage.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. Done.
So you're hitting
That's
both of
done.
those.
I love it.
Both of those.
So you're going to see that up on the marquee at the queue in the next when it goes up for sure. Dr. Jacques, thank you so much for this. I've been looking forward to having you back on again, our 20th season. Man, it just, I feel empowered. Like these are the conversations that I love. And thank you for everything you've done and all your work. And I'm wishing you and your family and everybody all the best as we head into the holidays here.
And the same to you, Jeff. And again, congratulations on 20 years of impacting people with content that obviously is meaningful to them, or they wouldn't have followed you for that long.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You've done good work. Just keep it up.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to the next time we have you on because boy, we've opened up the rabbit hole of just learning here. Much appreciated.
Yep, you're welcome, and the best to you guys for the Christmas holidays and the New Year coming up pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, it's right around the corner. You got it, Dr. Jacques.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, do I need to say anything here other than, hey, bookmark this, because we're going to have to go back and go over our notes and re-listen to this again. There is so much packed in here, like such great stuff. And how about the title of this episode? Hey, the smart bomb of performance. What do you think? Hey, listen, I have not heard that analogy of the smart bomb, but in Dr. Jacques' work with the military, what a great story and a great perspective on, sort of the ebb and flow of performance, constantly making adjustments to make sure you're on target for what you want to do. Man, I absolutely love that. And of course, the reality of that side of it, right? Working with the military, where, as Dr. Jacques said, it is life and death. Or even like working with his racers, going 300 miles an hour. There's not a lot of room for error there, right? In most sports, we're worried about how do I tackle and overcome and really contribute and increase my personal value inside of game performance, right? But here we're talking about other things with our police and our SWAT teams and our military. We're talking about incredibly powerful decision-making and critical decision-making that could, lead to a life and death situation. So on that side, man, respect to all of our military and the people that serve, all of our first responders who are out there in these split second decision-making scenarios. That's performance thinking. And I hope you're really listening to this show, because I know this stuff helps. I really do. And for our athletes, our parents, coaches, and athletes out there, are you kidding me? The smart bomb of performance. Hey, understanding the nail of mental self-sabotage. That idea, he starts all of his presentations with a picture of a nail in a piece of wood. And what would the hammer be? But understanding that nail, man, I just really like that. See, this is the stuff you get from Dr. Jacques Dallaire. Just really simple, incredibly powerful stuff. And he kind of mentioned it there. I don't know if you guys caught it, but he kind of mentioned that, some people might think it's too simplistic. Forget about that. Forget about it. And I hope, I know that's water off the duck's back for him. That bounces off him like bullets off of Superman, right? That stuff doesn't bother him, because he's done it that way for a very succinct and deliberate purpose. So we can dive in and use this stuff, right? Because if you don't get those simple foundations, he talked about that pyramid, right? Those foundations, you can't get to the performance part. Unfortunately, most people, and not intentionally, right? They skip those big bottom foundational builders, like our 5 priorities, the Krush 5 priorities in sport, to get to the performance. Mainly, probably because with good intentions, they don't really know what to do there. This is what you do. This is what you do. The performance equation, A plus B equals C. Come on, it doesn't get any simpler. But that right there, if you're not doing that, you have very, very little chance of being successful. And then the 3 ingredients of performance, like the 3 key ingredients of performance, such simple stuff and things that you and I can do every single day to be better at everything we do. Like this podcast, for example. I'll go back and analysis. And again, you guys, I'm not a classic broadcaster, right? I'm a sports performance guy, but I love talking about this stuff. So I've been working on my presentation and, how you say things, but regardless of all that, we can use this in every part of our lives. The 3 simple things, and we can all use them right now. I love the simplicity of this. Number 1, the right level of calm. 2, the right level of intensity. And then 3, really important, those 2 lead up to this, an unwavering laser focus on what we're trying to do. And that is, in Dr. Dallaire's experience and my experience as well, that is where we waver. That's where that smart bomb analogy comes in, man. When we get off target about what we're supposed to be doing, when we start thinking about what's ahead, or if I mess up here, what happens? Or, oh man, I screwed that up. What's the consequences of that? Or if I do this or I don't do that, or what if, the what ifs will kill you, right? Forget about all that stuff. Get back on track, laser focus on what you're doing right now, whether it's in training or whether it's in game, right? And the top performers do it. Some of them, these top performers, the people who are performing at the top of their arenas of performance, regardless of the sport or business or whether it's military, first responders, the medical, the surgeons, right? Come on, it's all important. It's all performance. They've made themselves special. They've done the work, okay? And they've gone through the processes of failure, discovery, trying something, discovering that it fails, and then retrying and calibrating their work for them personally, but also for the demands of their sport. They've made themselves special. And I've always said from day one, hats off. I have so much respect for people who have stuck to it and gone through those processes to become an expert, a master at their craft. And it might be a construction guy, or it might be, an artist. It might be a musician. Like some of the top musicians, how do their minds work? Where does this new music come from? Everybody knows the notes. How do they put these new notes together to create incredible music? Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie, was a real good one. We tried to get Brian May on the show a couple times. We've been back and forth. I'm going to try again. Okay, I'm going to try to get Brian May on the show again. We went back and forth via email a couple times, but with his touring and schedule, it just hasn't worked. But I've always wanted to know, with these bands that I grew up with, man, just the process. That is teamwork too. And again, I don't know. I think I mentioned it on the show before. We had Phil Toe on the show, who was the performance guy behind Metallica when they were falling apart there. He brought them back together. What a great conversation that was. But that band, Metallica, one of my favorite bands, and even growing up, the music kind of shapes who you are. That's teamwork. And Phil talked about that, about the teamwork and reuniting as a team and having that team approach. Man, that's a band. And the creativity, it's crazy. Very, very similar to sport, right? And a lot of the talent research is done on musicians, music and sport and the culinary arts, these measurable things, right? Where you can actually see the tangible outcomes of the effort. So really, really interesting stuff. And Dr. Dallaire, listen, such great stuff. Mindfulness, mindset, laser focused. But the thing I really, really take away here, and I'm going to go back and listen to this again, is this idea of being laser focused in the moment. Like, that's such a key. And you hear that again from a number of our guests. But that performance equation, the three key ingredients are just stepping stones, guiding smart bombs to help us guide ourselves to where we need to go. So, wow, what a show. Okay, I'm glad you guys are here. Please share this with your teammates, with your fellow coaches, with your organization. Share this with your family members. It is just such a great conversation. And again, if you have any comments on this one, let me know. JeffKrushell.com is the website. Get our podcast. Check out the archives. 20 years of shows there, you guys. Check out our course, Creating Coachable Players. This one's for baseball, but it's coming for parents and coaches in every sport. We just think it's important. And it's all about this side of the game, preparing your athletes for the sport demands. So if you're coaching baseball, for example, this course dives into my side of the game, because we know at the developmental levels, not everybody has access to a strength and conditioning coach or a performance guy. Well, we walk through it and make it really, really simple. That's on the website. And again, if you have questions or comments, or if you want to see a guest that we've had on in the past, let us know. We're working on it right now, okay? Listen, this is just an incredible show here in our 20th season. We've got one more coming up. We're going to revisit with Krush favorite James Kerr, the author of Legacy. If you remember and you want to go back and listen to that one before he comes on, he followed the All Blacks as they made their push to the Rugby World Cup. But the culture, how are the All Blacks one of the winningest franchises in the history of all of sport, right? What do they do that's different? That conversation, we've actually replayed that a couple times by request from our station managers, from the audience as well, and from myself. We're going to revisit with James next week, and I'm looking forward to that. But let's study. Let's re-listen to Dr. Dallaire here, and let's get ready for James next week, because all this is leading up to 2026, the new year. Next week's show will be the last show of 2025 as we get to sort of the midpoint of our 20th season of Krush Performance. But when we hit that new year, it is pedal to the metal, performance all the way. All right, you guys, listen, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Dr. Jacques Dallaire, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Krush Performance.
Find out what it takes to be a top performer. Get the Krush blog, podcast, and newsletter at KrushPerformance.com.
Goodbye now. Don't forget to ride.